Hello Guardians, it is Ebontis here, back with part 2 of the Europa breakdown. Video I put up last night is breaking down the new update to the Bungie.net website, going through the map, the locations, and the information we got about those. So if you haven't checked that out, click the link up above, and then you can watch this one. I recorded both of these parts together, so if I'm referencing like earlier in the video and you haven't seen that, that's because it's in the other video. But today, what we're going to talk about is the Destiny 2 Beyond Light Europa trailer. Going deeper into the destination, we get to see a lot of different locations. We get to see an NPC, which is now confirmed for the DLC, really cool combat character. And we also get to see some new enemy types. We get to see some new enemy attacks, a little bit of tease of some of the weapons, no big show-offs or anything there, but just a lot of speculation about locations, where we're going to be going, how big Europa is going to be. So first thing I'm going to do is play the trailer straight through. And then after that, we're going to break down all the frames that I found important. Please comment down below if you have thoughts, opinions. If you're one of those people who are really in-depth in the lore, please comment. Let's see how much of this we can figure out and get our heads wrapped around this trailer. There's a lot to unpack here. So here we go.
What have you seen out there? Look beyond the frozen wasteland. Europa is a place of many mysteries. Do not lose your way. We all come to this moon looking for answers. What do you hope to find here?
Europa has been home to darkness for some time now. Its history could be the key to our fight. Help me unlock it. The deepest secrets of Europa are now within our grasp.
Alright, so we've got a lot to unpack here. So we're going to go through frame by frame of kind of the big pieces that I see. We've got new enemies, looks like new enemy attacks, kind of literally piece by piece talking about each thing. So this may be a little longer than you guys are going for. If you like this format, please let me know in the comments. If you guys would prefer a little shorter format, let me know. There's a lot of pieces to break down in this trailer, so we're going to go through piece by piece. First thing we've got here is going to be the, I don't know what this like monolith looking thing is, but you'll notice what the Guardian looks like it's standing on. We're going to see later on which almost looks like it's within either a pyramid ship or someplace that has the pyramid architecture. So keep this in mind and remember this has got to be related to that, but it definitely doesn't look like there's a pyramid ship around. So I don't know what this monolithic structure is. Somehow they feel like they're connected. Now I'm stopping this here as kind of two things. One, we've seen this place a couple times in some of the B-roll. We've seen it in a couple other places in the trailer. Seems like more of a subterranean area. Definitely where the Vex are doing some stuff. You can see you got the radial area, waterfall in the background. You've got the big pyramid, square columns, rectangular columns, I should say, kind of pointed together. This is definitely an area, looks like probably underground in that Vex area that we saw previously. Now we also, on top of that, in front of this, we also look to have this, again, looks like a pyramid coming together in pyramid fragments, which, again, that's part of the collector's edition is that little pyramid fragment. And these seem to be doing some, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is related to a public event, a story beat, somewhere this little pyramid shard construction thing that's happening right here while it assembles. Definitely going to be something important, but I have no idea if it's related to a public event, but all these little baby pyramid shit thing, like fragments coming together make this bigger piece. I really want to know what happens here just because these look cool, the animation's kind of awesome, and just want to see where all of this lands, be it story, public event. I don't know if it's going to be related to anything else. Maybe it's on an adventure or something, but the Vex area is definitely where it looks like this one is taking place, kind of subterranean ground where these big Vex columns are. Okay, this screenshot looks like it's probably in the Eventide Ruins towards the north section of the map. And this is where it does look like, again, they're talking about the home of the settlers in the Clovis Bray colony. And you've got all these taller, kind of skyscraper looking structures, definitely very substantially tall buildings. And of course, you've got the sideways icicles because it's basically frozen and windy there all the time. And then we've got this like bigger frozen lake. Now we don't know if this is towards the north section. I thought this was a frozen lake looking somewhere else previously. And thanks to not having my microphone unmuted, I'm recording this entire thing twice, so forgive me. So previous I actually thought this was like the bigger frozen lake as we go look out towards the pyramid ship, that's where we would be driving. But if this is a little farther north, it might be just one of those middle sections on the map, maybe kind of between Chasmish Ridge and Asterian Abyss. If you go back and look at the map, this could just be a big sheet of ice that kind of connects everything. Not entirely sure still how the geography of this planet is set up. But this is kind of a cool shot of all those buildings that we're definitely going to be interacting in a lot more than it looks like. So I'll show you guys a little bit more as we go. Next one we've got here is going to be definitely more towards either the Eventide Ruins, and I think this is still probably towards the north section, because in the picture we have of the Eventide Ruins, it does look like we've got a very, very similar structure, just kind of turned at a different angle. So I think this is still up in the north section. You've got the building kind of behind the catch is that yellow building. It's just a little harder to see with the fog right now. Catch flying over, so we're still in the very north section of the map right now, very overrun by Fallen, and of course their architecture here as well. So they may be trying to either investigate this area, kind of set up shop, but Fallen looks like they're going to be kind of a big force in the northern section of the map for sure. Now, this shot right here is a whole lot of questions, probably more than answers. But first thing, you look at the architecture, the walls, and kind of the way everything looks with the lighting. This looks like it's inside the pyramid ship. Now, I don't know if it's on the moon, and we get to do more exploring there, or this is the actual pyramid ship on Europa. But we have two things. One, the Vex with those little tentacles behind them, we see them later on. That's a new enemy, and believe me, they're kind of a beast. So we'll discuss those when we get there, but they look kind of awesome. Second thing, the same opening shot, that big monolith I was talking about. If you look here just behind these two Vex in the foreground, you see two of these. I almost want to look like they look like treasure chests in like an RPG that you'd open, but they have that kind of elongated like chest look and that like square, like kind of diamond shape on the front where you'd almost open the chest. And they look right here in the foreground, same principle. But this is very much on the inside of what looks potentially like a pyramid ship, or this is more of that structure of that big giant monolith. Either way, Vex are completely all over this thing, and that new enemy type with those blue tentacles, promise you those are a bit more terrifying than they look because they're going to be doing some stuff. But Vex, pyramid architecture, they're definitely heavily in the mix in here. Now, this shot is kind of short-lived, but also really, really cool. I would imagine this is related to either an adventure or a story, because this tiny little platform out in the middle of next to nothing, and then much, much farther away, it looks like there's kind of a, an area you can explore over there. It's got a bit of a, balcony to it and stuff that you can get out to, but it's so far removed from the ice that you can see in the background. To get here, either this is a big elevator lift we go up to, and this is how we maybe get inside the big monolith area. All I can say is this area looks really cool, and I can't wait to explore it. I just can't put my finger on where it's going to be on the map. Not much more than a big tunnel. It does look like it's within at least, somewhat of Fallen or human origin. This is not like pyramid ship area per se, and definitely not Vex. So this could be inside of maybe the Clovis Bray area that we get to a little bit more. We'll see more of that as we go. Not too much to clarify from here, just a cool, lighting shot. Now we have to stop because he's been talking through the entire Tyler trailer. This is Variks, and this is who I was talking about who sent the distress signal. Now he is like one of the Fallen kind of higher ups, but he's never been like a Kel per se. I don't think. I could be completely wrong in the lore. But he's also been an ally to us at points. In the Prison of Elders, he helped us. And he's been kind of a weird ally. He was on the Reef in Destiny 1. He was one of the people we interacted with actually as an NPC as we tried to fight against the Fallen when they were fighting us in House of Wolves. So he's been kind of an ally to Guardians in a weird, weird way. So the fact that we actually either get to interact with him, get a bit of a story from him, on top of the fact that we've got the Stranger, the Drifter, and Eris doing their piece of the story as well, we might have two different pieces. Now, speculation here completely, we know we're dealing with Eramis. She is the Kel for the House of Darkness, and she's the one going after all the pyramid powers. Variks sent a distress signal. Maybe he's seeing what Eramis is doing, and we have to help him, and maybe that's the kind of where we start in the campaign, potentially. And he may be the one who guides us through the campaign, and maybe the other NPCs explore more like quests and bigger, grander things that we're going to go on. So I'm not entirely sure where he's going to tie in. I don't feel like Variks is like hanging around the campfire with, the other three. So I have a feeling there may be two, forking paths or two different story quests or campaigns or something. I'm very curious to see where he plays into, to say the least. But he's a cool character, always got an awesome voice, and, all that. Yes. Too many people have made that joke, so I had to do it as well. Now, this shot here is kind of awesome because, for one, we get to see that we've got kind of the Hake scopes where you have the little enemy outline on them. And you also get to see that we're walking around on what looks to, again, be these giant, like, sheets of just, like an ice lake. Now, there's a couple rocks in this picture as well that you can see, like big ice boulders or anything like that. But the fact that if you go back and watch this trailer slowly, the enemies on the left of the scope that are highlighted now, couldn't even see them until the actual scope comes up. So the fact that these scopes will be highlighting enemies might be a little more useful than we thought if the weather elements on Europa, because it is just one giant blizzard probably all the time, will be very beneficial. And these are, of course, those new like red and blue, very industrial looking, thematic weapons for sure. All right, so here we look like we're getting into more of the Braytech science area. The little teaser we got before, kind of basically one screenshot showing what most of us implied to be kind of either the Deepstone Crypt or something related to all this exoscience. If you look in the middle in that like kind of roundish object in the middle, it looks to be a whole bunch of like glowing mainframe cables. Like, have you ever seen like cable porn, which if you guys look that up, you'll probably know what I mean. So it's like a whole bunch of server, like, LAN cables that are organized into a big switch. These look kind of similar, or for like, design structure, they kind of look that way. So again, this may be inside the Braytech facility. Of course, we've got shanks around the side, so not too much to start. But overall, this definitely looks like we're inside the Clovis area. You've got that kind of forklift thing on the left-hand side. So where definitely some industrial type, workshop work had been happening previously. Now, this shot, if you guys have watched the trailers for Forsaken, and I saw somebody on Twitter point this out too, which was funny because I was thinking the same thing in my first recording, which was muted, so no one will ever know I did it. We've seen before a big giant bridge and a Guardian going across it for a really cool like cinematic shot, but we never actually got to explore it because we were unable to reach it actually in game. Now, this could be similar. We don't honestly know, but if you look at the scale of the Guardian on the bridge, they're tiny. And this bridge is huge for scale. Now, the other question is where it's located. The Eventide ruins and these like ice, these old skyscrapers that have been like now have the sideways icicles all over them. You can get the scale of the height of this area. Wherever we are, whether it's a catwalk on a building that we're going across, whether these are some of the towers we climb up, which we'll see later on, which looks like we do get to the top of one of these, because I've seen too many shots where there is one tower that we get to the top of. I just don't know if we have to traverse all these to get there, which would be cool. This is just a really cool shot to show the scale, and I like the idea of the fact that the game is going into some verticality. Verticality always adds, it literally adds depth to the game, because we can go underground, like in the moon, which you have two flat areas, but if we can get into like a sky, we get like 3 different zones, which is really, really just awesome. So I'm very curious to see if this is one of those like perfectly cinematic shots that somebody's like, hey, let me go put a Guardian up here in a developer environment, and it looks cool. I actually want to see if we get to explore there. That'll be more fun. Now, this is a cool one to show some of the architecture of both what looks to be like a floating pyramid thing in the background. In the foreground, you've also got a good idea of what the like geological like look of the Europa ground looks like. Now, granted, these are floating rocks, so something's going on. But the fact that we have the frozen ice that's basically everywhere, but we also have those red, veiny energy things underneath it. All this entire scene right here reminds me of Thor: The Dark World, because you've got in the background what looks to be the thing that was holding on to like the big tall structure that was actually keeping the ether in its little container. And then also when you look through the rocks, it looks like the ether that just kind of like red tentacle, like kind of energy that's passing through, like not electrical, but it's kind of something else. It's that like red energy that's passing through all the rocks and just seems to be buried in there. This is just a cool shot showing what Europa can look like, combined with the pyramid ships, and we've got floating rocks. I have no idea where this thing is, but so much stuff is floating in the air. We're definitely getting vertical and definitely getting some height in this one. As you turn into this one, the previous like couple frames say, what is under the ice? And this is again where we see more. We're back in that area where we have more of the flat blue ice to explore. Got the Vex in the background. This is probably a similar shot where we saw the little pyramid fragment thing earlier. And the radial area waterfall. This does seem to be all related to this section. And these little floating pyramid fragments that seem to be all made up of baby little pyramid fragments, there's something going on here. I don't know if they're one thing that's going to like kick off an event, if they're like where enemies are going to spawn from, whatever it is. This is definitely a substantial area that they want us to be focused on. And I'm guessing this is probably the Asterian Abyss, which is related to all that Vex area. Just a hunch, but I could be completely wrong till we go. Now, some of these shots actually are not very long, but they're definitely ones to make note of. And this, I think, is, I don't know if this is on the pyramid ship. There's a couple other screenshots if you like go back and look through some old stuff. You have this similar point where it looks like it's towards the top of the pyramid ship, and then there's like where you might have to enter. I mean, if you're like, you know, if you have 2 legs and you walk around, even if you're like the Veil people, they have to walk in, and maybe this is where you actually enter the pyramid ship, as it looks like these stairs go up and then go down into something. We're definitely towards the pyramid ship architecture with this shot here. Just not sure where this is going to be located, if this is like separate from the pyramid ship or we're out on that big frozen lake where the ship we saw in the trailer. If we actually go to get on that thing, that will be cool. Now, this is just a cool quick shot of a lot of Guardians. All the helmets look like they are going to be the seasonal armor set. They've got the little Tron glowing lines in them. You've got a lot of these red and blue kind of industrial Clovis Bray weapons. Nothing too fantastical here. It looks like a beefier with the Titan on the front, like on the left of the image. That one looks to be a little beefier of a gun for sure. It could be like either a machine gun or something. Auto rifle on the Warlock on the front, and then the back probably something similar. Nothing too standoutish here for these weapons yet. All the stuff on the back always kind of looks funny because they have these like snow camp backpack type things, but overall that's just more cosmetics. It's not like we're actually camping out anywhere. Now, this is probably one of our first shots where we actually get to see inside the Braytech Exoscience facility. We've seen the logo before. If you go to Mars, you'll see this as you're exploring for the little baby quest today. But we also get to see a couple things. One, we get to see full-on Braytech, architecture here. We've got the smooth walls and the color scheme. Fallen have overrun this place completely. You can tell they've got their little outpost over here on the right. But this is all the first time we get to see the little, like, mech warrior guys. Now, these are small versions. If you ever did Scourge of the Past, you got to see the big, giant mech that was buried in the ground. Huge raid boss. The dude is massive. This one is probably the smallest version I've seen. There's another one later on, which looks more probably like a strike boss due to its size. This one looks like just one of those enemies that we're going to be fighting. So these little like mech dudes that are running around. And those, at least in this picture by scale, look to be about twice the size of a Vandal. Not substantially big. It's like there's a Vandal in there kind of controlling it, and it's got a couple big mechanical legs and stuff. But just the fact that we actually get a new enemy type, even though we are facing the Fallen, that's exciting. We also have new attacks that I'll show you guys as well. But a brand new like enemy period for a race that we've had for a while is cool to see, because that means they're advancing and hopefully they're going to put up a bit more of a challenge as well. Still got Shanks and Vandals and all that stuff running around, but the new mech guys, I'm also curious what they're going to be called. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have any speculation what those little mech warrior guys are going to be called. Now, this next frame is a complete color palette shift. It looks like we're probably in the same facility, but we're now in more of like an industrial factory area. You've got the orange everywhere. It looks like you've got these like robotic mechanical arms moving stuff around. Again, I have no idea how big these sections are, but if this is just part of Cadmus Ridge and you've got this entire exoscience facility underground, again, always nice to see when you go in Titan and you're like, oh, the arcology in that place is actually pretty damn massive down in there. Hoping this is more like that, where we actually get to do some cool exploring over here. I don't know if this will be related to Strike, where we're like running all the way through it. It could be, but overall, this is definitely some cool looking areas. Now here, still looks like we've got the Exoscience logo on the far left. You guys can see that, the white logo on the red paint. But this also looks like it's either a loading bay or transport pods or something of that nature, where it's more definitely transportation of either, whether it's a working craft, whatever it may be. Just looks like you're almost inside like a little baby like space station here, and they're launching a pod out into space. Who knows? But still cool looking here. Also, we get a different look here at a weapon. Now, I don't know if it's a skin on it, but we definitely have more of a white color scheme with the red on it as opposed to the blue and red. Still looks more of a similar industrial design, though, so maybe it is just a weapon skin on here, perhaps. I think one of the biggest questions also in the trailer is right here. This looks to be some little chamber, and you've got two sides of this machine that seems to be connecting these two. On the left-hand side, we've got what looks to be almost kind of like Ada 1 by color. She's an exo, and, the exos were created, and their consciousness was made in the Deepstone Crypt, and that's a whole bit of lore that I'm not going to claim to be an expert on. But that one kind of looks like Ada 1, roughly, just by color scheme, and you can tell. On the right, you've got a goblin, straight up, like the head's of the goblin that we are used to shooting. The fingers look all weird. I can't tell if those two are connected by like a machine or something of that nature. but there is some speculation. Twitter popped up and was blowing this theory up as well, is the fact that somehow the Clovis Bay Research Facility was experimenting with trying to get like Vex into exos or using their either technologies or something with the exos. And somebody actually had a pretty cool theory. I don't know, remember who it was because Twitter goes too fast sometimes, of the idea that the Stranger, which we know from Destiny 1, and she basically like traveled through time and left us on a like balcony out there. She just walked off into time. That maybe her ability to travel through time is some experiment with the Vex that actually worked and gave her some abilities that most everybody else doesn't have. So that was kind of cool speculation. But the fact that either these two entities of like a Vex Goblin and some Exo are connected leads to a whole bunch of questions, and I'm very curious to see where this story beat goes to understand more behind the idea of the Exos and their origin and what it went through to create those, but also what the heck they're doing with the Vex and how they're using that technology and races abilities. Who knows? But lots and lots of questions here. This is kind of cool. Now, this shot here is another one of those where it's could be that bigger monolithic structure in the background. Again, never can tell where everything is in this place. The ice structures far, far in the background, almost in the skyboxes, are like big, giant ice shelves. Can't do much on those. This is 100% Vex, though, because you've got these disappearing platforms. You can kind of see them materializing. You've got the little shielded boxes shielding the shield in the middle, and that may be a platform how we launch to whatever's in the background. Could be an adventure, could be a strike. Very cool. Honestly, this whole planet is looking really awesome, and I'm just kind of excited to explore every nook and cranny that this planet has. Now, this shot here is what I'm assuming is potentially the end of the campaign, which is hopefully not, but it does seem like there's 6 Vex dropping down to attack us. In the middle looks to be what kind of looks like that shot we have of what I kind of am guessing to be Eramis. Kind of the fallen Kel that we're fighting looks to be about the same size and coloring a little bit of what we've seen before. And also I feel like this upper platform on whatever these like, towers are way up in the top of the Eventide ruins, somewhere there's like a circular, looks like a helicopter landing pad almost, but it looks a little bit more interior, but it does look to have that large circular platform. I've seen it in multiple different shots as we've been going through, like getting baby trailers and footage and stuff. This may be like the culmination of climbing up this tower, and this may be like the first place we fight Eramis, or kind of our first interaction. Maybe she like bails and gets out of there by jumps off with, I don't know, parachute or jumps on a ship or something. Who knows? But this looks like a very big confrontation with, I'm guessing, Eramis right here, and just the fact that those, fallen are dropping down to kind of ruin our day as the 3 Guardians are running up in the front. Some big confrontation is going to happen here because there's like a story beat of a Guardian standing up here looking out over like all the horizon. This is some big story beat. Just kind of curious when we get there. Now, I don't have any other way to guess what is happening besides the fact that it looks like this fallen guy, who is just holding his hands out in the air, is shooting stasis crystals out of his face or his eyeballs, or he's doing a Superman death ray of stasis crystals. But it seems to sound and also imply that there's the guy behind him who's holding like the ice spear. Totally get it. This dude has no weapon in his hand and looks like he's attacking the crap out of us. So if you have fallen guys that are just shooting ice crystals like a projectile and they just like barely tick away at your damage, but if you get like caught in the beam, you're in trouble. That's going to be new for sure. So that's something to consider. Now this looks like Vandal upgrade number 2. I don't know if these are going to be special Vandals, what they're doing, but I'm going to show a second screenshot while I'm going through this that tends to show what this enemy's attacks are. And if you see the little ice shards on the ground, it looks like kind of the way the Behemoth Titan is able to smash and shoot the bigger ice crystals that come out of the ground in that like cone forward. These seem to be a little more along a narrow path, but if they travel straight to you and they like, basically stab you in the feet, still probably going to hurt. So you can see here that he's getting ready to smash into the ground. And then if you move over to the other side where you actually get to see the Guardians, you get a shot of what looks to be a whole bunch of ice crystals slowly traveling, and he's definitely shooting them right towards the Guardians. So if this is one of the new attacks, like a ground wave attack, that'll be something new we haven't experienced as well, depending on how much range it covers. It's going to be a bit of a dicey thing to dodge. Talk about floor is lava, just the floor is, frozen liquid nitrogen, ice, don't touch it type situation. So yeah, definitely cool. We get to see new attacks as well. Now, this is the best shot before the captain actually starts firing, but I wanted to show the fact that, like, the way they have updated some of the models for the enemies that we're facing is really, really cool. The shanks look like they have a little deviation to them. I don't know if they're stasis shanks or anything to that nature, but the captain here in the front looks kind of awesome. He's got the big fur, like, wrap around his upper body. Still, of course, he's going to have the big, I can't even, the slug rifle or whatever they have. It's probably a wrong name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The big captain weapon. But you can see this big, like, flowing cape, and it's got, like, the House of Darkness emblem on the back of it. It's got the, like, kind of loincloth hanging down the front. Almost looks like it's got, like, leg armor on. Captain's looking kind of beefy here, so just thought this was actually a cool look to see. And then we could go ahead a few frames. So here we can actually see that we've got these fallen guys, and I think they're Wretch, if I remember the name correctly, like the more melee spear type guys. You got two of those behind. Again, everybody's decked out in like the cold apparel. Stay warm because this place is just like, Antarctica times 200 or something. It's probably just blisteringly cold. But got a grenade launcher coming in. Can't tell what type it is, but you see the grenade launcher firing in, getting a nice explosion. I'm very curious when we get to actually see stasis weapons, how they're going to interact with enemies, if the stasis will actually just kind of add an element of freezing them, but if you get more stasis bullets to hit somebody. I'm very curious if they give, because right now Arc, Solar, and Void weapons don't do like fire damage or void damage that does, it's like the fire damage doesn't specifically like burn enemies, the solar damage doesn't. I wonder if the stasis is just going to be another color, or if they actually start to let the stasis weapons have effects to them. I would love if solar weapons would slowly build up like a burn damage on an enemy, and then you could eventually, like, they would combust and catch on fire or something. That would just be kind of a cool effect. We don't have anything like that in the game, so I'm not expecting it. But again, brand new element they're bringing into the game, first time in 6 years. Maybe they do something cool. We'll see. If nothing else, it's a tank, and I have to take a picture of it because, hey, tanks are fun, and we've had those in a decent amount of the campaign missions, so nice to see now we get to go roaming around in the snow in a tank and blow some stuff up. Now, this shot here looks to be like, I can't tell, doesn't look quite like a sniper rifle because it does remind me of an older one, but it's probably just more of a scout rifle. Very different look, though, unless it's, again, just another shader on those industrial weapons for, all the Braytech weapons and stuff like that. Generally, though, still just a shot of a cool-looking weapon. More detail on the Warlock helmet where you can see, like, those neon lights down the middle. And just kind of a good look of actually the Warlock's armor overall. All of them look fairly cool, just this is actually a pretty crisp shot, which we don't always get because everything's moving fairly quickly. So I wanted to pause a second for this one. Now this, I don't actually know. Now as we go through like the next couple of screenshots, it's probably related to some type of event. Now the next couple of screenshots are probably going to lead into what I'm talking about. A large collection of enemies, and we're talking like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, like 20 plus enemies in one tiny little area. This is a huge chunk of enemies, so you're going to need like a super to clear these guys out. Something's going wrong, or this is just some big event. And I'm wondering, as we get to the next couple screenshots, I'll show you guys if this is related to something like Escalation Protocol, if you've got one of those like kind of public event, not a public event, but like, a public space like activity to do. Something like Escalation Protocol or Altars of Sorrow. I will be curious if something like that's in there, because this does seem to have mechanics when I go forward a couple frames to what comes next. Now here's one of the shots. There's a lot to break down in this one, and if this is related to what was going on in the previous frame, some type of, outdoor activity in public spaces we've got going on. Now, architecture, you see like the pyramid, the inverted pyramid sitting around it. You've got a couple more in the background. Now, one thing to note here, and this may be mechanic related, if you'll notice between the two pillars on the, like, kind of just towards the middle of the screen is one of them, and to the right of that, you see what looks to be a very white-looking diamond, and then below that, a very red-looking diamond. Now, this has got to be some kind of mechanic, either turning on and off a switch, or you got to, like, kind of like in Crown of Sorrow, you got to hit up and, like, hit both of them at the same time. Not entirely sure, but there's more of those we could see in a future frame. But before we go there, what you'll notice is below that red diamond, this is one of the new Vex enemies that I will say looks really cool, but also could be kicking the crap out of us, because it looks like a Hydra for a second in the way previous shots when I was showing you guys like floating around in like the pyramid architecture area and those like floating tentacle looking harpies. These seem to be the same things, but the harpies got pissed, they grew legs, and now they can do even more. So remember that guy later on, because he's going to do some cool stuff. That's kind of what he looks like in base form. Now here's another shot of the Guardian, and we're looking at, again, a very light, almost blinding white colored pyramid, or diamond, and then below that you've got the red pyramid. So is this like an on-off switch? You've got to switch things out. Some mechanic is related to these, whether it be a strike, a world activity, something along those lines. And again, this looks to be a pretty substantially large area where they're doing the fighting, because now to the left of what we were looking at before, you see more of these pyramids. A lot of the ground seems to have that like tiled, like kind of Vex or pyramid tiled look to it. Something's going on up here. This is a pretty big area, and some activity is going to be probably taking place up here, as it's kind of probably a big set arena that we're going to be doing all of this in. And of course, the collector's edition comes with a fragment that looks exactly like that. So I'm guessing that's probably going to be our artifact. Either we go through the story missions and get that as the artifact, we do our first one and she gives us the little fragment. But I'm guessing that's going to be our artifact for Season 12. Makes too much sense. It's in the collector's edition. She's now showing it to us. It's got to be something that we're holding on to for a little while, as it seems fairly important and may connect into what goes on in the future. But of course, the Stranger, she's always been really cool. We just didn't get much interaction with her before. It was very, very vague. Obviously, the crap of the story that Destiny 1 got. But the fact that they're bringing her back, I really hope they do her story justice, that we really get a lot of interaction, kind of understand what happens, where she's been, if she knows that we're the same Guardian, or anything related to that. I just want to see where they take the story with the Stranger, because I think she has the most potential for a very cool story. Eris obviously has some cool stuff going on. Drifter's got some crazy background. Stranger's just a big question mark. I hope we get more of her story fleshed out in this season. Now, here's where we get to see, I would say, like Mech Warrior level 2. Because the previous one that I said was about the size of a Fallen Vandal. That Fallen Vandal would probably be standing up to this thing's knee. Now, it's not as big as the raid boss, I don't think, in Scourge of the Past, but he's definitely like a pretty beefy boy here. You've got the emblem on the front, where you can see the House of Darkness for sure. And looks like one big cannon on the right arm, left arm. I can't tell if that's actually going to be firing or more of just like a balance for functionality. This is just a much bigger mech. Now, I can't tell for the architecture where they are, if they're in that, Cadmus Ridge or somewhere in the Clovis Bray facility. But this may be related to maybe like a strike boss, just by size and scale, because they're not going to show a raid boss. Not going to happen. So if we do have a new strike, this may be the boss related to it. And it does seem to be a fairly bigger open arena, maybe some upper tiers to walk around on, but a larger open space to fight a big guy like this. You're going to need some room to move around in. So I'm guessing this could very much be a strike boss or a mid-strike fight, something like that. But mark my words, this is probably a strike boss if I had to guess. Now, this is like the close shot of this new Vex enemy. So it looks like a harpy on steroids, because there's a lot more going on. You've got the tentacles behind. And what happens is, previously you saw that it looked like it was standing on the ground on the legs. And what it looks like it does is it almost like jumps up in the air and seems to like retract the legs into its body. So like underneath it, you can see them kind of coming up. And then once we get this shot of it up in the air, we actually get to see what the attack is going to be. So I've got to go frame by frame here to try and pick the right one. So here's probably a really cool shot so you guys can see what it's kind of like pinning. It looks like it's pulling its legs up into its body. Tentacles are out to the outside. As we move forward a couple of frames, you can see it really get compact and tight. This is about almost the size of like a harpy with like a little bit of flare out, but the big like tentacle wings out there are kind of almost like charging up. A lot of energy is coming into the center of it. And then, so this is probably one of the better shots to show it in motion. Right here, what we've got is you see the pulse of energy from like the area in space that it like left, and then it tends to like lead with its legs, kind of shooting forward, almost like the little tentacle wings are behind it, almost like a cape, and it basically ends up just launching itself forward for a kamikaze attack to like blast the ground, and then we finally get to the final screenshot when it actually hits. And it's a pretty sizable explosion, and whatever Guardian is in there definitely took some damage, 100%. I don't know if it's going to kill you, but it's definitely going to hurt for sure. Final frame that we get to stop this thing at is going to be right here. Now, some people had speculated this is like, how we're going to get into, what am I trying to think of? Vault of Glass. I don't think this is going to be this. One, Bife is out there basically saying this is probably not the entrance to Vault of Glass, which makes sense because Vault of Glass is probably going to be, I wonder if it'll be a different entrance to get into, but we'll just have to honestly see how it is to build the portal. But this definitely is some type of Vex portal. When we were in Season of Undying, we built the portal, we brought over the Undying Mind, took care of him. This has a very similar look to it. But if you look to the left and the right, we also look to have looks like the Braytech mainframe looking cable structure thingies again. And then up in the foreground here, just in front of both of those mainframes, those look like the Glimmer collectors from the public event. They kind of look like those little structures that were there before. So there's a combination of a whole lot of things going on here, but this is like the last shot that they leave us with. So I wanted to end here. So this is everything that we got today. We got the map, kind of getting a feeling of the scale of the area. We've got like 5 different zones to explore. They introduced the fact and confirmed that Variks is going to be in there. He's going to be part of the story, starting with the distress signals, probably how we're going to start the entire campaign. We know that the Stranger is definitely going to be involved in what's going on with the Pyramid, it seems. Still not sure where Eris and the Drifter come in, but they're definitely out on this planet as well. And there's new enemies, new attacks. The stasis is Definitely going to take its own spin on the Fallen. I can't tell if the Vex are going to have a lot of new attacks or we're just going to have that more new Vex enemy to face. But the Fallen are likely going to feel very different. They're going to have their own abilities. Probably something more along the lines of what Siva did, is taking the Fallen, giving them a decent reskin, but also changing up the way they attack because they do have some darkness abilities and powers now as well. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know it's kind of an in-depth and longer breakdown, but I kind of like to do these to cover everything in these like frame by frame shots that we can. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like below, leave a comment if you have thoughts about any of this stuff. I'm not claiming to be a lore expert, so if you have like any good amount of knowledge on lore, things like that, love to see your theories down below. Believe me, I read them all. It's very cool. If you are new to the channel and you enjoy, for one, Destiny 2 and just enjoyed the video, drop a sub and a alert bell on the channel as well. New videos are going to be coming as we get more information on Beyond Light, and of course, when the game comes out, I'll be covering that in depth as possible. So definitely sub to the channel if you haven't before, and you guys can always find me on Twitch and Twitter. See Bounties on both. Thank you all for the support. You guys are fantastic. I'll see you soon, and have a good one. And definitely go into Mars, do that little quest today, the memorial to the fallen developer. It sucks we lost him, but Bungie did a really cool thing. So check that one out for sure. I'll see you soon.